Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. My name is Brittany Knowles. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am the Learning and Development Specialist here at Career Circle. I have ombre and highlighted braids in a natural hairstyle. I'm wearing wide brimmed clear glasses as well as a smile, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. Before we begin, I want to thank you for joining us for today's webinar, The Military Community Recruitment and Retention Strategies. Here at Career Circle, we are a diversity workforce solutions company on a mission to change lives by connecting underserved communities with career opportunities and helping organizations build skilled, diverse pipelines. We have a wonderful group of panelists today who are going to provide some actionable advice for welcoming the military community into your organizations and optimizing their distinct abilities for mutual success. We're currently recording this webinar to ensure accessibility for all participants. You may enable closed captioning by clicking on more on the bottom right of your screen, then click captions and show captions. Again, I want to thank our panelists for joining us today and for the work they do within our community every day. I also want to thank our attendees for tuning in, whether it is to cheer us on or to support the panelists or to learn and supply yourselves with the new tools and best practices to further your inclusivity efforts. If time allows, we'll have space for Q&A. Please feel free to put questions in the chat and we'll address them as they come if we have the time to do so. To start off our webinar, and before introducing our amazing panelists, I wanted to provide some impactful statistics. So around 200,000 service members transition from military service to civilian life each year. Additionally, there are roughly 1 million military spouses in the United States, including spouses of active duty, reserve, and National Guard members. The U.S. Military Spouse Chamber of Commerce estimates that there are an additional 11.2 million spouses of veterans. Taking into account that this is a large population of our community, it's important to acknowledge the challenges that they may face and the additional support that can be provided. Identifying how we can embrace transferable skills and rethink our recruitment processes is key to sourcing and retaining our military community talent. More and more employers are recognizing these benefits, and we hope that our conversation today will be a building block into a larger actionable motion. Without further ado, I'd love to begin introducing our amazing panelists. Could you each provide your descriptive introduction and tell us a bit about your organization? I'm going to start with Samira. Can you talk to us about who you are and who you represent?
Good morning, good afternoon. I am so excited to be here and especially share this opportunity with the amazing panelists. My name is Samir Searcy and I go by the pronouns she and her. And I currently work at Tech Systems and I'm part of the amazing ID&E team and I serve as the senior ID&E strategist for our military connected programs. Prior to that, I had the privilege of serving in the Army and retiring after 20 years of service. I have long black and gray patches. Those are my wisdom patches, is what I call them, of sister locks. And I have dark brown eye and I have glasses with a tan trim. And I'm wearing a zip up sweater. Which is white with gray patches. And I'm sitting here in my home office in Augusta, Georgia, which is about 15 minutes from Fort Eisenhower, formerly known as Fort Gordon. Real quick, as a retired Army veteran, after nearly almost 21 years of service, I deeply understand both the excitement and the unique challenges that come with transitioning from the military life to the civilian workforce and all the challenges that come with that. And that's why I'm so excited to work with an organization such as Tech Systems. And just to give you a real quick understanding of who Tech Systems is, Tech Systems, we are part of the Allegis Group. We are a global business and technology service company. Our company is built on the foundation of service, and our mission is to help clients achieve their business transformation and customer experience. With expertise in cloud, data, and digital platforms, our purpose is truly to create significant opportunities for our people to achieve fulfillment through career success. And that is why we are here to help you all to achieve that career success. We pride ourselves in fostering an inclusive, diverse, and equitable culture, both within the workforce and the workplace. Our commitment has earned us military friendly and military spouse friendly for now 10 years. We are excited to celebrate that that. And we continue to partner with over 6,000 clients, including 80% of the Fortune 500 companies. Many of these organizations you are familiar with, and we continue to lock arms and create opportunities for this community. I'm so excited to be here and to be part of this engaging conversation. Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you so much. And again, I want to mirror the sentiments of our audience and say thank you so much for your service. You do not look a day over 35. So 20 years of service, where? Where? Okay. Uh, so the next person on the panel that I love to introduce themselves, please, Meredith, please introduce yourself, give your descriptive introduction as well as a little about your organization.
Yeah, sure. It's so great to be here with you all today. I am in an area where it's raining, so I'm going to say please forgive me if my internet is not awesome today. It's one of those technology challenges. But my name is Meredith Lozar. I'm the Senior Director for Strategic Engagement for Hiring Our Heroes, which is a 11-year-old initiative of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. And over those 11 years, it'll actually be 12 this year, we have helped over 1 million military spouses and service members and veterans find meaningful employment or professionally develop in their employment on their career journey. So I'm really excited to talk with you today about adding this particular audience to your workforce. I am wearing a black top, short sleeves, because it's actually pretty warm here today. And I have long blonde hair with bangs. My daughter calls it a Taylor Swift haircut. I am not going to say that it is actually that cool, but I love that for a moment she thinks that her mother might be that cool. So, and my pronouns are she and her, and it's a pleasure to chat with you this morning.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm seeing it. I see the resemblance.
Yes.
I'm seeing the resemblance. And Ken, last but certainly not least, if you can give your descriptive introduction and a little bit about your organization.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kim Mays, and my pronouns are he and him. I currently work at Syracuse University's Daniello Institute for Veterans and Military Families as the employer navigator. I have a salt and pepper beard and a clean shaven head with wired frame glasses. And the IVMF at Syracuse University is an interdisciplinary academic center of excellence that is singularly focused on advancing the post service lives of the nation's military veterans and their families. The IVMF helps those who have served find purpose after their careers, whether it's a spouse, it's a transitioning service member, it's a veteran, it's a member of the Guard and the Reserve. It doesn't matter. We serve the entire military community, all supported by research, policy work, and data-driven program evaluation. Since 2012, the IVMF has served over 200,000 service members and their families. I, myself, am a proud veteran of the United States Army, where I served for 26 years of honorable service, and I'm currently located in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for your service. Thank you. So we are going to transition now to these questions, these burning questions that we have for you all this afternoon. Okay. Question number one is for you, Ken and Samira. How has the current landscape of skills-based employment impacted military community hiring efforts?
Okay, I'll let Samira go first. Go ahead, Samira.
Awesome. What a fun question. I will start by saying that in the military, essentially, my career has been based off of skill-based training. I have excelled because of those very specific trainings that I received. Now, so when we think about the hiring efforts and how it impacts the military hiring, it's twofold. One, it's an absolute added value benefit that is is a huge benefit to close the gap in understanding the skills that come out the military and being able to provide those relevant skills into industry. Now, the other part of that that I want to say is that what I've seen is that there are many initiatives that are providing skill-based training, which great. I love it. Continue doing that. But what I challenge people is that to be very specific. the issue that we see is that sometimes we get so generalized in that our military members don't necessarily become strong marketable candidates because they don't have those applicable skills. So as an example, for us is that we have our data centers. And we have within tech systems, we have established training opportunities specifically for those organizations or the companies that are looking for those skill sets. So I say that to ensure that be intentional about the skill sets that you're generating and making sure that it's aligned to very specific industries, very specific skill sets that is going to ensure that veteran, that military spouse, that reservist, that guardsman, the student veteran the best opportunity for success because those skills are so relevant and needed. And those are what the customers are looking for. Those are what the organizations are looking for. So I'm absolutely for skill based, but I think that we just need to make sure that we're being very intentional and making sure that it's going to lead into skills that companies are looking for.
Yeah, I think Samara, you're spot on. And when I think about skills-based employment, I always go back to when it really first came about, which is back in the 2008 recession, and it was accommodated by the birth of a term known as new collar workforce. And the new collar workforce essentially is the workforce that doesn't require a 4-year degree, but it does require a certain set of skill sets. It also requires some type of certifications of some sort, especially when you're talking about the technology and the medical industries as well. But during the pandemic, we've seen this increase dramatically over time. And one of the key reasons for the creation of this new collar workforce was because it was so difficult to find good talent that didn't have a long incubation period in order to qualify for employment opportunities, right? So that 4-year degree kind of, it became a discriminator as instead of being something that was a value that for an individual. And I think skills-based employment really tells the story of service members, especially for those that do not retire. Right, the first termers who do 8 years or maybe even 10 years, and they may have a bunch of college credits, but they may not have an actual degree. Now, as a result of skills-based employment, one of the things that we've seen is a lot of employers have taken those additional steps, and we're still witnessing this, right? They have taken the steps to re-credential the job descriptions because what they found out was a lot of the job descriptions was inadvertently disqualifying people, and a lot of people were not even applying. If I read a job description and with the terminology that was in there, it was excluding people and they were not even trying to apply. So as an advantage, the skills-based employment has really opened up the lanes of employment for those that don't have 4-year degrees, and we're starting to really see the traction now. As an example, even if on the government side, if a role requires a 4-year degree in today's economy, what you may see is a 4-year degree and or 8 or 10 years of experience will qualify you for the role. That was not the case some time ago, but that is the case now. And the overall impact that we're seeing is a lot more diverse hiring opportunities as a result of skill-based employment. And a lot of people are able to get in, they can get nurtured and mentored once they get into the organization, and then they have an opportunity to traverse either horizontally or vertically within the organization. So skills-based employment definitely is a great opportunity for military personnel. In fact, last year, McKinsey highlighted that improving employment outcomes for transitioning veterans through skills-based hiring could add nearly $15 billion to the U.S. economy over a 10-year period. So this is a great opportunity, especially for our military personnel, members of the Guard and the Reserve. I definitely encourage you to take advantage of these opportunities. And if you're an employer seeking top-notch talent, you should definitely consider, working with your hiring managers, looking at your job descriptions and trying to eliminate anything that can inadvertently disqualify people and give them an opportunity or a pathway into your organization. Thank you.
Absolutely. And what was that number again? You said 15 billion? Was that what you said?
Yeah, 15 billion over the next 10 years, according
That
to McKinsey's
that is
2023 report.
incredible. Meredith, you were going to say something?
I was going to hop in from the military spouse perspective. So, being an active duty military spouse and also really looking at this population, to Ken and Samira's points, what we know is that 90% of military spouses either have or will upskill and reskill. So when we look at skills based from a military spouse perspective, if you're looking for this talent, or if you're a spouse in the audience,
I want to ensure that I'm not the only one where there is a
sorry,
freeze.
it's
Yep.
me. It's
Okay.
me today.
Okay. Well, once we have you back, you can continue. I'm gonna go.
I am
Oh,
just going.
Meredith. Okay. Uh,
Turn off your video. That might save some
that
bandwidth.
that might help.
Yeah, let me give that a try.
Okay. Well, someone in the chat said you freeze beautifully.
Well, thank you for that. I do appreciate it. I know it is just this weather today. Let me see if you all go on to the next question. Let me see if I move, if it'll get a little better.
Alrighty, absolutely. So the next question is for you, Meredith and Ken.
Well, great.
What are the benefits of having a diverse workforce that includes those from the military community? And what are some effective ways to engage and retain military spouses and caregivers alike in the workforce?
I mean, I think that's a great question. Let me see, and I'll start, Ken, and then please come in and foot stomp this here. I think looking at retention of military spouses, we move 10 times more frequently than the average population when compared to our civilians. So this is our 13th PCS move. I'm coming to you from California, and we will get ready to move 14th time this summer. And that is a very typical of a military spouse. So when you're looking at retaining this population, it's really about how can you take this talent and make their role portable? How do you give them an opportunity to go into an office in another location that you might have, right? Where do you have other brick and mortar
Meredith, you might want to
spots for
try,
them? Or how can they
you may want to try
gosh.
just turning off your video. Okay, please continue. It just froze again, just a second ago. So continue where you were.
Sure. So looking at this, there are so many opportunities for us to take a role and make it 100% remote for a military spouse. So when you have that great talent, how do you take that role and say, you know what, we can let this person work from their home in that new duty station? And Ken, I would love for you to expand on that.
Yeah, absolutely, Meredith. I think one of the key benefits of having a diverse workforce is number one, diversity of thought, especially when it comes to the military and the mil spouse community. When we talk about the military and the mil spouse community, there is such a diverse collection of individuals. We have people from all walks of life within the military, and they all have different experiences based on their own individual socialization. So that also equates to a wide range of experience. Now, when it comes down to engaging and retaining this level of employment from an engagement standpoint, I think that employers who want to capitalize off of the diverse military talent pool, they can connect themselves with nonprofits such as the Institute for Veterans and Military Families, right? And some of the other organizations in the veteran service organization space as a way to just really connect with individuals and give them the resources that they need to continue to advance within their careers. Now, to retain them, which is the most important part, right? Because we want to demystify that myth that service members only stay at organizations for a year, but retention actually begins before the onboarding. Let me explain that a little bit. If you say that you enjoy having service members within your organization, then it starts from the time they first look at your job board or go to your website. If you say that you're veteran friendly and you're veteran ready, then your webpage needs to support that, because if it doesn't, then people are not going to think it's true fact that you really support them, right? So everything from the onboarding, when people get hired, you need to make sure that you have a distinct onboarding plan for that particular individual. Align them with something. In the military, one of the things, and Samira, you can attest to this, one of the things I've always had in the military, no matter where I was a buddy. It's all about the buddy system, right? And that's how service members are accustomed to functioning and operating. What has happened in the past is we see service members get hired, and once they get hired, they feel like they're by themselves. They feel like they are alienated, and they're out there and it's them against the world. And their service members with that team concept mentality, they're just not accustomed to working in that type of environment. So, from an employer perspective, if you want to hire and retain, number one, you have to connect yourself to organizations that support and provide for the military community. But then when you bring them into your organization, all the way to, if I start next week, this week, you need to be engaging with me, or have someone from the organization reach out to me and connect with me, maybe even have me shadow someone for a little while. This kind of goes a long way when it comes down to retaining the talent, and you don't want anyone to feel alienated. So I think that's the overall value from a diversity perspective. You get so much experience and talent and diversity of thoughts, and we've already seen the paperwork on what happens when that occurs. The bottom line of the organization increases because of diversity. But engaging with that particular group of individuals, and then also being able to retain them by having dynamic, unique, personal onboarding plans is a good way to retain that talent.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Oh,
I would
Samir?
love to just jump in real quick. Ken and Meredith, 100% agree with what you all said. I think that even for, and Ken alluded to it, is that, when you transition to out of the military, right, or even just as a spouse transitioning into a new area organization, there are gaps, and it's the responsibility of that employer to ensure that they are not only creating a culture that is welcoming for this community, but doing their due diligence in one, educating themselves on how they can support this community. Where as an employer can I fill the gaps to ensure that these individuals understand what is expected of them, and then understand what we are going to provide to them so that they are able to be set up for success, so they can have a long-term successful career, and not have this, I call it stepping over your feet. Every time you figure something out, then there's another challenge that you kind of have to overcome. How do we smoothen out that transition by providing better awareness, better education for our employers so that they understand exactly where they need to lean in to provide that support and create a holistic buddy system throughout the organization. And I think sometimes what we get caught up is that one of the things that I see is that organizations are like, okay, yeah, get the support from the ERG. But I think that there's so much more to understanding a culture. So we need to make sure that we're connecting our members to our community, to your workforce community, making sure that they understand the business language, making sure they understand operations. What does it look like, not just from a military's lens, but from the organization culture lens, and embracing them and having them fully integrated into the organization?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your response. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge Grace over in the chat. I see that you are starting us off with networking, which we would hope would happen at a panel like this. And so feel free in the chat to connect with each other, put your LinkedIn in. That this is you're creating your community, you're creating that support amongst like-minded individuals and liked experienced individuals. And so thank you so much for starting us off with that, Grace. As well, I do see your question. I am going to make sure to put that towards the end when we have the open Q&A, okay? Thank you so much for your question and for engaging with us in the chat. So, my next question is, what role do certifications and additional training play in helping those in the military community qualify for civilian roles?
Well, I'll go ahead and start that one out. And I think it's pretty relevant because the IVMF, that is one of the areas where we specialize in helping service members, spouses, veterans, you know, members of the Guard and the Reserve achieve certification. So a certification, it kind of opens the doors, if you will. It's like it allows a service member to level set, if you would, with years and years of experience. The difference between a certificate and a certification is pretty clear. And certifications can really help individuals who may not have a ton of experience or may not have that 4 year degree, just kind of leverage and be able to capitalize off of their years of experience in working, especially for something that's very specific like IT or human resources, right? But what it also does is it's an indication that an individual has actually committed to that industry, because once you get a certification, in order for you to remain certified, you have to get continuing education units. They named them different things depending on the industry. PMI, they may call it. I know HRCI calls it CEUs, SHRM calls it PDUs. It really depends, right? But every specialty organization, to include attorneys and accountants, right, they all have to be licensed and or certified, and they have to renew their credential every so often. And when you have that certification, it is a strong indicator that you are a person that is committed to that industry. You've met a criteria that has been identified by that governing body as one who has met a standard, not just a US standard, but most of the certifications are international. So, based on the international scale of measurement, you have demonstrated a certain level of proficiency. That is one of the key values of a certification. And it's also an indicator that an individual is committed to lifelong learning. Because if you do those continuing education units over that 3 year window for your cert in order to keep your certifications, then that definitely is an indicator that you're willing to learn and you're willing to advance. Technical roles that do not require 4 year degrees, such as like cybersecurity, some IT roles, coding, and other IT roles can be acquired through boot camp style learning and certifications, right? And now you can come out making 90K plus a year and not have a 4 year degree. So certifications in some industries, it will take you a lot further if you have the certification. And when I look at the knowledge base of a service member, I look at it from a couple different perspectives. And I like to call it the IQ, the intellectual quotient. Number one, I look at it from a traditional education standpoint. I look at it from an experience standpoint. And if you don't have that 4 year degree or a college degree of some sort, then that certification can kind of really help to advance you and level set you within the marketplace. But then that fourth area that I also look at is the business acumen. And a lot of that is acquired once you get into the organization, because just because you get a certification, that does not mean that you ought to know all to be all in that particular industry, because every organization may leverage the knowledge from that certification differently. So, education, experience, certifications, and then once you get into the organization, you work on that business acumen, because that is what teaches you how your knowledge can be applied in that particular space of employment. Samir?
100%. I tell when I speak to military connected members and they ask me about, should they spend their time getting certifications? And I tell, and I asked two questions. I said, one, what is it that you're hoping to get from it? And what is it that you want it to do for you? And understanding that certification is not the process that's going to get you hired. It is it can act as a process to validate your skills based off of your experience and your background, and it can also demonstrate your ability to be a candidate for a specific industry. So just investing in getting a certification is part of it. But as Ken said, it is understanding the business acumen aspect of it. How do you articulate and demonstrate your skills? How do you articulate and demonstrate what your capabilities, your experience, and being able to really lean in and hone in and being able to really articulate the bigger picture and understanding now that you have a certification, do you understand what that certification is going to do for the specific role that you're looking for or for the job opportunity? So just taking the time to become educated on the benefits of certifications, and also there's accountability on you, and there's due diligence that you have to do to be able to make the certification work for you. Just getting it is not going to get you hired, and I feel that there's this false understanding. Well, now I have my certification, now I have a PMP, now I have my CompTIA now, and I am still not getting hired. Well, it's more than just the certification, but but you're getting considered for these opportunities. You need to now take it to the next level and understand and take that certification to validate you as a strong candidate for those opportunities.
Can
Yeah,
I
I
just
would agree with
oh,
that, Samira. Thank you. And also Ken. And I would also say, as military spouses, we often struggle to look for places that we can work with a coach or a career counselor on how we work on our skills and sharing that now we have this certification and here's what I'm bringing to the table. So help me to successfully interview, help me to successfully network. And because that is all a part of this. So I would say for those who are on the line who are looking for those resources, the Department of Defense has wonderful career counselors and coaches that you can utilize that are free to you as an active duty military spouse through the Spouse Education and Career Opportunities Program. And then also hiring our heroes to really work on your elevator pitch and your LinkedIn and all of those kinds of things that outside of just achieving that certificate, go.
we were doing good, Meredith. Um, So let me just say thank you so much for your response, for all of your responses. I think that that's so important as we're talking to this population to talk about the fact that yes, those certifications are important, but you want to build upon that. So much through Career Circle, we have individuals that are like, I have this certification and I haven't been hired. Well, what have you done about that? Have you done research on the organization? Have you determined what the holistic person is that this person is wanting to hire? And so thank you so much for giving that balance of information and also for jumping right in. I'm over here like, oh, yep, they know. They know it's their question. I forgot to tell you. So thank you so much for jumping right into the next set of questions. This one is for you, Meredith and Samira. Question number 4. What are the benefits of offering internships or apprenticeships specifically for the military community?
So let me try to start, Samira, and then please save me. I'm just having the terrible internet connection today. So I will say a couple of things. One thing we know is that internships are wildly successful. So there are skill bridge internships, which are 12 weeks of paid opportunity on both the military spouse active duty side through the Career Accelerator pilot. And then there's also the skill bridge program for transitioning service members. Both of those programs have a 90% placement rate. So wildly successful at achieving full-time employment when you're done with an internship. It helps you get to know the company get to know you, you're developing the skills that you need, you're getting in there every day to find out if it's a good fit for you personally in that climate and in that organization. So internships are wonderful for both candidates and employers. And Samira, please pick up on that. There's so much to be said here.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics, and I'm a huge advocate for internships and apprenticeship. One, I'm a product of SkillBridge, and what I experienced through SkillBridge was awareness of how big the workforce is, how I had to better understand that although my military MOS was this specific title, that in the military we labeled it in this industry. As I entered into the SkillBridge opportunity, I clearly understand and I quickly realized that that wasn't the direct correlation, that it wasn't apples to apples when I transitioned. In fact, the job that I did was considered human resources, and come to find out it's more sales in corporate America. So that was the education that I received, was being able to understand how my skill sets can translate into corporate America, was my personal experience. For me, we just launched our military spouse accelerator program, our pathway program for our military spouses. And we started as a foundation skills, and we brought in recruiters, we brought in spouses as sourcers for 12 weeks. And in that process, we wanted to ensure that, one, they had a clear understanding of what was expected of them if to move forward into a full-time role. So we were very intentional about our experience that we provided. We were very clear about objectives and outcomes. We were very clear as to what success looks like, what good looks like, and what is not moving forward going to look like, because that is a conversation you have to have. And because of those very intentional milestones that we created through this program, the spouses who came in and participated in our program, one, didn't even think that this was an industry that they wanted to participate in. But because we provided very clear objectives, and they had a clear line of sight to what success looked like, they enjoyed the experience and they wanted to be part of that. And all while learning new skills. And I think that it's so important that you just don't focus on the skills, you focus on the experience. How are you creating this experience for the individual through through this internship or apprenticeship program? Because if you take the time to truly be very intentional and making sure that you look at this person as a human being, and you want this person to walk out with the best experience possible, then that is how you are going to really make beautiful changes within this community, and ensure that you're providing the opportunities for that while providing the skills that they need in high marketable industries.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to what both of you said, and I'll just tell you a quick story. I was a recruiter in the Army for 11 years. I retired as a 79 Romeo, and I will tell you, a lot of recruiters don't stay on that long. But during my tenure in the Army, I was able to get my bachelor's degree in human resources. So as I transitioned out, I started working about 30 days into my terminal leave. So I've been working over 30 something years without a break, to be honest with you, right? But I got my first role as an HR generalist. And with my experience in recruiting command, I thought I was ready. Now, unfortunately, I didn't do the apprenticeship or the internship, but working as a generalist, I got a rude awakening because I found out very quick that recruiting is about that much of human resource body of knowledge. It's very little. And it aligns. I mean, it's one of the few areas where military HR or recruiting and what's done in the civilian sector is in perfect alignment. Because as you said, Samira, it's all about sales, right? But working as a generalist, I had a situation where I had to open my eyes to find out about compensation and benefits and FMLA and all of the labor laws, right? And that's what encouraged me to get an HR certification, because I realized very quickly that there was a gap. There was a serious gap that's out there. And internships and apprenticeships, from what we do and what I do at the IVMF, one of the key things is dispelling a lot of the misperceived conceptions about certain industries and organizations. For example, we work with a very popular insurance company from time to time. And when people see the name of this company, you know what they say? Well, I don't want to do sales. I don't want to, I don't want to go out there and try to convince nobody to buy a policy. But once we did the foundational overview of that organization, all of our project managers were like, wow, I did not realize the insurance industry has so many agile certified practitioners and scrum masters. That's how they actually perform their roles, right? The type of projects they engage in are quick, they're short, and they're very intentional. That's why they have scrum masters. They don't really lean into waterfall project management as much, so they use agile methodologies. But If you stood on the outside and you just reflected on the sales aspect of recruiting, you could have missed an enormous opportunity as well. So I think internships and apprenticeships, they have their place. If you can get in one, that is great because they're not all created equal. We know that, especially internships, they're not all created equal. Sometimes it's all about who you know and who knows you as well. Apprenticeships, they're great, especially if you're prior service. You can capitalize off the BAS and the all of the additional subsistence and GI Bill money that you can get by being in a registered apprenticeship program. But the bottom line is to get a level of experience that will prepare you for your next move. And I think that is the ultimate value for internships and apprenticeships when it comes down to the military community.
Yeah, and Ken, there's something to foot stomp that you said there too about it's who you know. If you are an HR leader on this call who helps facilitate internships, experiences, or apprenticeships, remember that as you look at facilitating that with that manager who's going to lead that person, how do you help that individual have coffee chats during their apprenticeship or their internship? How do you network them within your organization? Because they do want to expand their network. And it oftentimes is who you know inside the own four walls of your company, not necessarily who you know on LinkedIn that's outside of that company. So oftentimes we see during internships that a hiring manager or a leader will struggle to provide that kind of networking for the person who is that intern or that apprentice. Don't forget how important that is to that individual. So Ken, thank you for raising that. I think that's a great point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My next question is for all three of you. What recruitment strategies have proven successful in attracting those from the military community to civilian job opportunities? Let's start with you, Samira.
Um, well, I think we talked about it a lot on here, but I think for me, it's education. It's education. You can create, you can create a perfect platform, a perfect ATS, system. You can create all these processes and programs in place, but if you don't have the the people managing these programs, these processes that don't have the awareness or the education about the military community, then it's not going to be effective. So I think for me, the first thing that I would highly encourage is making sure that your organization has a baseline foundation of the military community. Understand what the difference are. And it's not that we're asking for any favors. That's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is educating you so that you can have a great experience receiving these individuals within your organization. And then, two, creating that experience so that we can continue to increase retention through these individuals so that individuals want to stay with the organization because they feel fully integrated. They feel as if they're being invested and they feel as if they're being advocated for through some of the challenges that's unique to this population. So I think that, there has to be awareness on on the education, and that education is going to look different for your HR team. It's going to look different for your TA team. It's going to look different for your leaders who are managing the operations every day. But just recognizing that there has to be some intentionality of recognizing what are those unique challenges within this population and making sure that you make it part of your business to ensure that you are committed to supporting this community.
Absolutely. Ken?
I definitely agree. It's all about education. And a few years ago, the Institute for Veterans and Military Families, IVMF, we did a project with the Society for Human Resource Management Foundation, and it was called the Veteran at Work Certificate. If you're working in the HR space or if you are a supervisor or manager, I strongly encourage you to enroll and complete it. It was about 10 hours worth of training, and it covered a lot of the basic information that Samira is talking about. How do you understand the culture of the military community, from caregivers to spouses to transitioning service members to veterans? Not all veterans are created equal. They don't all think the same. They don't all move the same, right? So I think that is one of the key things to support what Samira was saying. Now, Out of that research, one of the things that I was able to extract from that training was that one of the best practices highlighted by a excellent military government contracting organization was to have a team of recruiters that were veterans. That was one of the key takeaways. That was one of the best practices for hiring and retaining military talent. Why is that? Because veterans attract veterans. I know they say unalike attract, but in this case, alike attracts because veterans are attracted to other veterans because a lot of the barriers are removed and they can be free and they can be open. So that's one of the best practices. And not to be selfish, but another one of the best practices is to create a some type of gateway into your organization through corporate responsibilities or corporate support, community events, right? Let people come in and see what you have on the wall in your organization, or go out into the community and have yourself branded and let people know who you are. And there was a organization in Atlanta that did this. And the way that they did it is that they just invited veterans to come in for resume reviews. And they sat down with them and they said, hey, here are some tips that you may want to consider. So I think those are two great points. But and then I also just want to put emphasis on the organization that I've been with for years is SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management. If you need to know anything about veterans and the military community, make sure you take that certificate. It is absolutely free. You don't have to be an HR professional to enroll in it. And I tell you what, you will walk away with a renewed vision on how you perceive the military community.
Thank you so much, Ken and Meredith.
Yeah, so let me wrap that up. And I think you all covered the veteran piece so well. I want to couple on a couple of things there that Ken just said, specifically for the military spouse side. So when we say veterans attract veterans, military spouses do the same. So if we know a military spouse is successfully employed with another organization, we are highly likely to look at that organization for a role for ourselves, whether it's a similar role or whether it's something different. What we are thinking is, okay, it's working for someone else who has my unique lifestyle. So let me look at XYZ organization for myself too. When you're looking at recruiting military spouse talent, though, they often say it's one of the hardest populations to find. And I would say, as a military spouse, it's probably true. What we need to be able to do is to be able to see someone who has successfully done the job for us to feel we can be successful at it. So, social media, videos, they can be really short clips, testimonials, and stories that you have from other military spouse talent that you have hired, or females in your organization, because military spouses are 91% female population. So they are going to look for examples of others who are in roles in your company so that they can say, oh, I can do that too. Oh, that might work for me. And when they can see that video or that testimonial, what research tells us is military spouses are 40% more likely to then go on apply for a role at your company. So please do think about, how can I capture a headshot of one of my military spouse employees and 2 paragraphs about their success here in the organization? Or the next time I'm doing a short video, how can I feature a military spouse or a veteran? That's going to make that talent more likely to pursue your organization.
I definitely want to add to Meredith and caveat on that. And I witnessed that firsthand with our military spouses. We had our military spouses who are directors, executive directors in our organization, speak to our spouses. And what was fun, I didn't know, and it just so happened to work out this way that one of our more senior military spouse was in the middle of a PCS. She was like, I literally moved last week and I'm still like, she showed the camera and she had boxes in there. And this is someone who's been in the organization for over 20 something years. And she's an executive director. And so when the spouses saw that in real world happening, and that the fact that she wasn't stressed because of her work. She wasn't even concerned about not getting the support that she needed from her job. She was like, I can do this because I have the support from the organization. And when they saw that, and they saw that she's been in this organization, and I think she said she's moved over She like within this year, I think last year she moved 3 or 4 times, right? So it was just like a moment of realization that they were like, "You know what? I can do it too. I can do it too." It's not going to be easy, and we recognize that, but there are opportunities and there are ways, and there's that network that you can lean into to ensure that you get the support, the resources, and say, "Hey, what did you do? Don't worry, I got you, and I'm going to provide you with the information to make sure that you set you up for success." So 100% agree with you, Meredith.
Wow. So just for those at home, I did a little synopsis and summary because y'all were dropping some good nuggets for me. Okay. So Samira said education about veterans is key. Then Ken said connecting veterans with veterans is important because they attract each other and also connect with SHRM. Now, you were talking specifically about a specific certification. Tell me what that was again for our viewing audience. What was the name of that particular certification you were talking about, Ken?
It's the SHRM Veteran at Work Certificate.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So we
I'll
have
put the
that.
link
Thank
in
you
the
so
chat.
much. Endorsing Sherm, love Sherm. And then going on to Meredith talking about spouses, attracting spouses and using branding to show ways that others have excelled within organizations. And then Samira wrapped it up in a bow by saying being transparent and sharing the ways in which your organization provides support is crucial and key as well to attracting and engaging and retaining um, our military within the hiring process and within our workspaces. So awesome, awesome. I had to reiterate those key points. So some other questions, and this is for anyone on the panel. These are just some additional questions that have popped up. How can companies address unconscious bias in the hiring process to ensure fair opportunities for veterans? Now, I'm really interested in this because I've only ever heard positive information, only had positive interactions with our military community. And so to hear there's a bias, I am so interested in what that looks like within the hiring process.
I'll take a stab at that one. I'll start it off. So when it comes to hiring and the unconscious bias in the hiring process for veterans, and I mean just the military community, I'm not going to say veteran spouses, guard and reserve. I'm just going to say the military community. That's 100% inclusive, right? Well, that's one of the ways. That's one of the ways that they can do that. They can don't separate us, don't chop us up into little pieces, right? Using more inclusive language in your job descriptions is one of the ways to kind of address and kind of eliminate the biases. Some organizations, more so today than before, are using blind interviews, right? So they're removing the race and removing the names because there's a name bias out there, and if you don't realize that, you're not just being true to yourself. Name bias, right? A gender bias. They're removing the gender bias from the interview process as well. And a lot of veterans do not claim their veteran status for obvious reasons. Why? Because it creates a bias. So, from the veteran's perspective, they may not even include their veteran status unless you're talking about federal employment because it gives them an advantage. If they say, okay, I'm a 30% veteran, 30% disabled veteran, I get an extra 10 points, right? But in the private sector, right, you have to be very mindful of how you approach that interview process, what you want to reveal. And we are seeing more and more HR professionals training their hiring managers and those that conduct reviews on how to do interviews that are unbiased, right? What are illegal interview questions, right? Don't ask me about my family. Don't ask me about where I went to. Those are all illegal interview questions, right? So being able to internally train your team, especially your hiring managers, because there's a huge misperception that HR hires people. HR does not hire people. Hiring managers hire people. HR's role is to make sure it's being done the right way. So that training of your interviewers to ensure that they are not asking biased questions, that they are not inadvertently eliminating people based on the questions that they ask. I think those are some of the key ways to remove their unconscious bias in the interview process and the hiring process.
Anyone else want to jump in on that, Samira?
I definitely agree. And I think it's also embracing the team. I think the more that you get them involved in what you're doing and vice versa, is that it creates a synergy of awareness and understanding. So I think that, when you're looking at your hiring team, you know, involve them in your process. Let them feel empowered and want to support the community. Let them ask those silly questions that they feel like they're like, what, I have a dumb question. No, it's not a dumb question. How can I help you? Right? Like, help me help you. And be okay with having them feel okay to be vulnerable with not knowing, and then taking those opportunities as beautiful teaching moments to create a real positive awareness for the community. And it's something simple, like I was on a panel, or I was listening to a panel with this amazing director, and he talked about military spouses, and the way that he spoke about military spouses can align with some of the biases that typically plague the military spouses. And so I set up a call with him after, and I was just like, first of all, I love what you did, but here, let me educate you about the beauty of our military spouses, and let me educate on how we're supporting our military spouses. And just in that 10 minutes of having just a beautiful teachable moment, he is now a huge advocate and properly representing and supporting the community to his now market. So again, embracing your team and allowing them to be vulnerable so that you can be the individual to help be part of those teaching moments.
Yeah, I would agree. And
Absolutely.
I'll just finish by saying there are so many great resources out there. So if you feel unsure about how to do this in your own team, it's not only, Ken mentioned the certificate, Love Sherm. There's also things from Psych Armor that are 10 minutes that will educate you in a heartbeat. And so if it feels overwhelming to really look at how this exists within your organization, quickly look up some of these resources, and you'll find that really in just the shortest opportunities, you can start to make a difference.
Absolutely. So I am looking at the time. Y'all, it has already been 56 minutes. Okay. I looked
That
up,
went by
blinked
too
one
fast.
time, and it's over. Can y'all stand it? So, with that being said, in the essence of time, I want to give you all one opportunity to give us a closing nugget, something that maybe came to your mind as we were going through these questions, one parting piece of information that you want to share with the community. We're going to start with Meredith this time.
Gosh, so one parting piece I would share is as I look at this from a military spouse lens, one of the things that we say is don't veteran and. And so what I mean by that is if you have a great veteran program, one of the things that you might want to say is let's look at what's really good about this, but let's not replicate it and say, oh, it'll work for military spouses too. It won't. They're two very unique populations. So when you look at really including this diverse population in your workforce and retaining that talent, it's also about learning the uniqueness of a military spouse life and situation and the qualities and skills that they bring, because it is quite different from being a veteran. So I think if I could say one thing this afternoon, it would be take some of the goodness that you've learned today and remember that these two populations bring very diverse skill sets and backgrounds to your organization. And that's a really beautiful thing.
Ken?
Well, I think the last thing I will share is very similar to what Meredith said. Don't align military spouses with veterans, but they also understand that when it comes to the military community, like IVMF, as I mentioned, we serve the entire military community, transitioning service members, veterans, military spouses, members of the Guard, and the Reserve. In the past, what we witnessed is all of them would get put into one bucket when it came down to employment. I think it's important to understand that there are unique career pathways for each segment of the military community, and they may not align with one another. For example, if I'm dealing with a transitioning service member who's only done maybe 8 years, of course, employment is at the front of his mind, at the front of their mind, because they need to be able to replace a level of income as soon as possible. So to put them in a pool with veterans who may not be as ambitious to go out and work, it's not doing them any justice. So one of the things that we have at the IVMF is the Employment Support Services. And the way that the ESS is set up is it provides unique pathways for every segment that we support based on their own individual needs, because each needs are different. Just like male spouse needs are different than veterans who are employed or looking to upskill, their needs are different from veterans who may not be employed. So I think it's important not to classify people and put them in one box, but understand that the employment journey is different for each of those segments within the military community.
Thank you so much, Ken. And Samira, wrap us up.
I would say that I think as leaders, it is important to stay curious about the evolution of the military. The military, when I got out 3 years ago, is different than today. The military 10 years ago. So, although you may be a veteran or military connected, make it a point to stay educated with how the military and the culture of the military community is evolving so that you can ensure that you remain relevant to their needs and support them for today's service members and military connected members, not of the ones of the past.
Thank you all so much. And thank you, everyone, for sharing your experiences, perspectives, and knowledge with us as members of the community, as well as representatives from your organization. We hope you've learned something and pulled some best practices. Please check out our events page on careercircle.com/events to register for upcoming webinars and events we have in store next Thursday. Next Thursday, we have a virtual career fair, and it is entitled Serving Those Who Have Served. That's going to be from 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time until 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'd love to see you there, and we'd love for you to check out organizations such as the ones that are represented here that support our military community. We'll be sending you an email with today's recording, some resources discussed, as well as some upcoming event information. See you very, very soon, hopefully next week. All right. Have an incredible rest of your day. Thank you all so much for joining. Bye-bye.